Jonathan Sterling didn't believe in miracles. At 53, he'd built a Manhattan real estate empire on a single philosophy. Sentimentality is weakness, and weakness doesn't build skyscrapers. On the morning of December 15th, he sat in his 47th floor office, the windows offering a panoramic view of New York. The city glittered with Christmas lights, but to Sterling, those lights were just an irritating reminder of a time of year he despised. Christmas wasn't about family or love. It was about hypocrisy and false promises. His secretary Carol entered hesitantly. "Mr. Sterling, the documents for the 42nd Street property are ready for your signature." Taking the folder without a glance, he kept his eyes fixed on the spreadsheets before him. "The Hartwell property?" "Yes, sir. St. Catherine's Orphanage." Carol's voice wavered slightly. "Sir, well, it's Christmas in 10 days. Perhaps we could give them more time to—" "Carol." His voice was ice. "How long have you worked for me?" "8 years, sir." "And in 8 years, how many times has sentimentality built anything of value?" She lowered her eyes, fingers twisting together, a nervous habit Sterling had noticed but never acknowledged. "Never, sir." "Exactly. The building is located in one of Manhattan's most valuable areas. Sterling Tower will be my masterpiece. 35 floors of absolute luxury. Every day of delay costs $50,000. He signed the documents with a firm stroke. "When is the eviction scheduled?" "Christmas Eve, sir, as per your instructions." A cruel smile touched his lips. "Perfect. Let them learn the lesson I learned. Christmas doesn't save anyone." Carol stood frozen for a moment, something unreadable crossing her face. After 8 years, she'd learned when to argue and when to simply leave. This was a leaving moment. She took the signed documents and walked out, closing the door with a soft click that somehow felt like disappointment. What no one knew was that Jonathan Sterling had his reasons. 50 years ago, he was just Johnny, a 3-year-old boy left on an orphanage doorstep in Brooklyn with a note. "I can't take care of him, sorry." He grew up in cold gray rooms, wearing clothes too old or too small, eating tasteless porridge while watching through the window as other children went home with their families. Most of his childhood was a blur of institutional beige and the particular loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people, but belonging to no one. But there was one memory, one vivid, crystalline memory that had somehow survived the erosion of time. At 7 years old on Christmas Eve, a volunteer brought donated gifts. Most were broken toys and faded clothes, the kind of charity that feels more like pity. But for Johnny, she had something different. "This is for you, sweetheart," she'd said, her eyes genuinely kind. "I saw your name on the list and thought you'd like it." A snow globe, small, with a family of 3 inside, gathered around a Christmas tree. When shaken, it played Silent Night in a tinny mechanical melody that was somehow the most beautiful sound Johnny had ever heard. He clutched it that night as if holding on to life itself. This fragile sphere contained everything he'd never had and desperately wanted. He slept with it under his pillow, talked to the little family inside, imagined their voices, their warmth, their love. For 3 perfect days, he had hope. Then Michael Torino, one of the older boys with fists that knew how to hurt, stole it out of jealousy. By the time Johnny found it, the glass was cracked, the water leaking, and the music box mechanism bent. The melody now played in broken, discordant notes. Johnny tried desperately to fix it, his small fingers working until they bled. But some things, once broken, don't heal. 2 weeks later, the headmistress, a woman whose kindness had been worn away by 30 years of impossible situations and insufficient funding, confiscated it. "Broken toys attract rats," she'd said. Not unkindly, just practically. He never saw it again. That was the last time Jonathan Sterling allowed himself to feel hope. That was the last time he believed anyone truly cared. At 18, he left the orphanage with $500 in his pocket, a GED, and a heart that had learned one fundamental lesson. Love is a lie people tell before they abandon you. Now, staring out at the illuminated city, he wondered why these memories were surfacing. Maybe it was because St. Catherine's Orphanage address was marked in his GPS. He'd planned to visit the property personally, something he rarely did. But this project was different. This one was personal. This one was about proving once and for all that sentimentality lost and pragmatism won. The car dropped him in front of a 4-story red brick building with arched windows and a facade that clearly dated back over a century. A faded sign read, St. Catherine's Orphanage, founded 1923. The windows were decorated with paper stars and handmade garlands that had the unmistakable look of children's crafts. Slightly crooked, enthusiastic, made with more love than skill. A Christmas tree, visibly second-hand but decorated with care, glowed in the entrance window. A painful constriction gripped his chest. Rage, that's what it was. Pure, uncomplicated rage. The entrance hall welcomed him with creaking wooden floors, walls bearing decades of children's fingerprints barely hidden under thin paint, and the unmistakable scent of cookies baking somewhere deep inside. A nun with silver hair and tired but gentle eyes came to meet him. Mr. Sterling. Her voice was polite, but there was deep sadness in her eyes. I'm Sister Margaret. I was hoping you'd come. I came to inspect my property. She swallowed hard, and he noticed her hands were trembling slightly. Yes, your property. Gathering visible courage, she continued. Mr. Sterling, I know you bought the building legally, but these children have nowhere to go. We have 12 here. The youngest is 5. If you could give us more time, maybe until February, we could... Sister Margaret, his voice was firm. I don't do business based on emotions. You've had 6 months since the debt was foreclosed. 6 months to find a solution. The eviction will be executed on Christmas Eve as per the contract. On Christmas Eve? Her voice broke. Sir, please at least give these children one last happy Christmas. Wait until after New Year's. Every day costs money. The answer is no. That's when he saw her. A small girl, maybe 7, stood in the hallway holding a patched teddy bear. She had curly brown hair pulled into uneven pigtails and huge green eyes. But it wasn't her appearance that caught Sterling's attention. It was her expression. She didn't look scared. She looked sad for him. Hello, she said softly. Are you the man who's going to take our house away? Sterling didn't know why, but he couldn't look away. Yes, that's okay. She hugged the bear tighter. Sister Margaret says God takes care of the sparrows, so he'll take care of us too. But you look very sad. I'm going to pray for you. Those words hit him like a physical blow. I don't need your prayers. I know, she responded with a seriousness disturbing for such a young child. But you need something. I'll ask Jesus to show what it is. Lily, Sister Margaret said gently. Come, dear. Let's let Mr. Sterling finish his visit. Sterling watched as the nun led the girl away, one hand protectively on her small shoulder. The encounter left him unsettled in ways he couldn't name. He finished his inspection quickly, making mental notes about the demolition. The building was structurally sound. Good bones, as they said, but it didn't matter. By the end of January, it would be nothing but rubble and memories. As he prepared to leave, laughter drifted from the dining room. Against his better judgment, he stopped and looked through the half-open door. The children sat around a table, painting Christmas decorations made from recycled cardboard. Lily was at the center, helping a smaller child glue stars with intense concentration. We can't have presents this year, one of the older children said, a girl of maybe 12 trying to sound strong but with a voice that wavered. But we can make the most beautiful decorations ever. And we can give presents, Lily said cheerfully. Presents don't have to be from stores. Sister Margaret says the best gift is giving our love. Who are we going to give presents to, Lily? We don't even have families. Lily was quiet for a moment, her small face scrunched in thought. Then her eyes lit up. Let's give presents to people who are alone. Like that man who came today. He looked very lonely. Sterling felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. He left before anyone could see him, before his carefully constructed walls could crack any further. But as he rode back to his empty penthouse in the Upper East Side, that child's voice echoed in his mind with relentless clarity. He looked very lonely. She was wrong, of course. He wasn't lonely. He was free. Free from commitments, from disappointments, from having his heart broken one more time. That night in his $3 million apartment overlooking Central Park, Jonathan Sterling sat in the dark, and for the first time in decades he wondered, when was the last time anyone had cared if he was lonely? The answer came quick and cruel. Never. The days before Christmas passed like a storm gathering on the horizon. Sterling dove into his work with renewed ferocity, as if every signed contract, every closed deal, could silence that irritating voice in his head. But Lily's voice wouldn't leave him alone. On December 20th, just one day after his visit to the orphanage, Sister Margaret showed up at his office without an appointment. Carol tried to stop her, but the nun gently but firmly pushed past. "Mr. Sterling, I need to speak with you." He didn't even look up from his documents. "There's nothing to discuss. The eviction stands." "I didn't come to discuss. I came to beg." Her voice was raw, stripped of dignity. "Sir, I'm 68 years old. I've dedicated my entire life to these children. I'm not asking you to give up your project, I'm just asking for time. 3 more months. Time to find homes for these children, to transfer them with dignity, not as refugees being expelled on Christmas Eve." Sterling finally looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the deep lines around her eyes, the hands gnarled from decades of work, the shoulders bent under burdens no one should carry alone. "Sister Margaret, with all due respect, your lack of planning isn't my problem. You've had months to prepare. We tried." Tears streamed down her weathered face. "We tried to find another location, but there are no resources. We tried to raise funds, but the economy is tough. We tried every government agency, every charity organization. There's no place for 12 children in Manhattan 3 days before Christmas." "Then maybe you should have thought of that before you let the building fall into debt." The coldness in his own voice surprised even him, but he maintained it. Weakness didn't build empires. Weakness got you abandoned on doorsteps. Sister Margaret stared at him for a long, searching moment. "Who hurt you this badly, Jonathan?" Hearing his first name, his real name, the name no one used anymore, on her lips was like a slap. "Get out of my office. You were one of those children, weren't you?" Her eyes were full of compassion he didn't ask for, didn't want. "You grew up in an orphanage. I know how to recognize the pain. I've seen it in hundreds of children over the years. That particular wound, it never quite heals, does it?" "I said get out." She stepped back, visibly shaken by his rage. But before leaving, she said quietly, "You think you're getting revenge on the world, but you're just proving that the person who hurt you won, because you became exactly like them. Someone who abandons children when they need help most." The door closed behind her with a soft click. Sterling sat in silence for an hour after she left, staring at nothing, feeling everything. Then he picked up the phone and called his lawyer. "I want the eviction executed precisely on schedule. 6 a.m. Christmas Eve. Marshals, police if necessary. And I want to be there personally to ensure it's done correctly." "Sir, that's unusual. And it could attract negative media attention. There's already some buzz on social media about—" "I don't care. I want them to understand. There's no last-minute redemption, no miracles, just consequences." But even as he spoke, part of him wondered, why is this so important? Why not just let the managers handle it? He knew the answer, though he'd never admit it aloud, because he needed to prove to himself that he was right, that the world was cruel, that Christmas was a lie, that hope was for fools who hadn't learned life's harshest lessons yet. That night, Sister Margaret sat alone in the chapel, rosary beads slipping through trembling fingers. "I don't understand," she whispered to the darkness. 40 years I've served these children, 40 years of faith, and now," her voice cracked, "where are you in this?" No answer came, just the flickering of votive candles and the weight of responsibility pressing down like stones. She'd always told the children that God had a plan, but in this moment she couldn't see it. She could only see 12 frightened faces that trusted her to protect them, and a door closing that she couldn't reopen. "Help me believe," she prayed, tears finally falling freely, "because right now, I'm drowning." At the orphanage, the children knew the end was near. Sister Margaret gathered them all in the living room on December 21st. "Children," her voice was steady despite the storm raging inside her, "you know we need to leave our home in 3 days, by Christmas Eve. I'm still working to find places for you to stay, but it may be that we'll be separated for a while." A chorus of tears and protests filled the room. Children hugging each other, small hands clutching the nun's skirt, voices calling out in fear and confusion. But Lily was quiet. She stood up, her small frame somehow commanding attention. "Sister Margaret, can we have a prayer meeting?" "Yes, dear, of course." The children formed a circle, holding hands. Some were crying. Others stood with eyes squeezed shut as if trying to will away reality. Lily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began. "Dear Jesus," her little voice rang clear in the silent room. "Thank you for giving us this home, and for all the people who took care of us here. We know you have a plan, we don't understand it yet, but we trust. And Jesus, please take care of Mr. Sterling. He's very scared and very hurt. Show him he's not alone. Show him that you love him. In your name, amen." Sister Margaret could barely speak through her tears. Several of the older children looked at Lily as if she'd lost her mind. Pray for the man who was destroying their lives. But Lily simply walked over and hugged Sister Margaret. "It's going to be okay, sister. God's already working." That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She lay in her small bed, hugging her teddy bear, watching the window where snow was beginning to fall in soft, silent flakes. And then, she had an idea. An idea that came not from her mind but from somewhere deeper. Mr. Sterling was alone, but she had something that could help him not feel lonely. She slipped out of bed and pulled her small backpack from under it. Inside, wrapped carefully in an old t-shirt for protection, was her most precious possession, her snow globe. She unwrapped it slowly, as she'd done hundreds of times before, held it up to catch the moonlight filtering through the window. Inside was a little family around a Christmas tree, a mother, a father, and a child. The water was yellowed with age, the mechanism clearly damaged, but when she shook it, the melody still played. Crooked, discordant, but unmistakably Silent Night. She'd found it 3 years ago at a thrift store during an outing with Sister Margaret. It was broken even then. The music played wrong and one side had a hairline crack, but Lily fell in love with it immediately. Something about that little family called to her heart. Sister Margaret, seeing how much she loved it, used her own $3, money she'd been saving for new shoes, to buy it. "So you remember," she'd said, pressing it into Lily's hands, "that you'll always have a family here with us." Now, sitting on her bed, Lily held that treasure in her lap. Her hands trembled. It was all she had. The only thing in this world that was truly, completely hers. When the older kids took her crayons or the worn stuffed animals got redistributed to younger children, she still had this. When loneliness crept in at night, and she wondered if anyone would ever want to adopt her, she could shake this, and hear that broken melody and remember. Family existed somewhere, and now she was going to give it away, to a man who was taking everything from her. "Jesus," she whispered, "this is really hard. I don't want to. It's mine." She thought about Mary, giving up her son to save the world. She thought about Jesus, giving up heaven to become human. She thought about all the Bible stories Sister Margaret told where giving hurt, but led to something beautiful, something redeemed. Her fingers tightened around the globe. One last time she shook it. The crooked notes of Silent Night filled the small room. She watched the fake snow swirl around the tiny family inside. The family she'd pretended was hers on countless lonely nights. The family she'd told her secrets to. The family that never left her. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Okay," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "But you have to help him, okay? Because I can't lose this for nothing. Please let it mean something." She found paper and a pen. With her careful 7-year-old handwriting, she wrote, "Dear Mr. Sterling, this is my snow globe. It's broken, but it's still beautiful. I think you need it more than I do, because everyone needs to have a friend. I'll be your friend, even if you take our house away. Jesus taught me to love even people who do bad things. So I love you, and I'll pray for you every day. Merry Christmas, Lily." She wrapped the globe in a piece of red tissue paper left over from decorations and tied it with string, her small fingers working slowly, carefully. This had to be perfect. Then she tucked it into her backpack, climbed back into bed and cried herself to sleep, clutching the teddy bear that was now her only possession in the world. Sterling knew nothing of this. He was in his office executing final preparations. The demolition crew was scheduled for December 27th. Plans for Sterling Tower were approved. Everything was in order, except he couldn't stop thinking about that girl. He looked very lonely. On December 23rd, he did something he never did. He dismissed Carol early. She'd been unusually quiet all day, and he caught her wiping her eyes once when she thought he wasn't looking. He stayed in his office alone, standing at the window, watching the city below. Snow was falling heavily now, covering New York with a white blanket. Christmas lights twinkled in every window except his. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. A man in an expensive suit standing in an expensive office, completely alone. His cell phone rang, shattering the silence. His lawyer. "Mr. Sterling, there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" The media picked up the story. "There's a New York Times reporter wanting to ask questions about the eviction. And, well, there's an activist group planning a protest on Christmas Eve. Social media is calling you Scrooge Sterling. Let them protest. It changes nothing. Sir, perhaps we should reconsider the date. The company's public image could suffer significant. I didn't build an empire caring about public image. The eviction happens as planned. If you need more security, hire it. If protesters show up, ignore them. I want this done by the book." After hanging up, Sterling sat in his chair and stared at his hands. Part of him knew this had gone too far. Part of him knew he was being cruel just to be cruel, proving a point to a world that wasn't listening. But another part, the part that had been that 7-year-old boy clutching a broken treasure, that part needed to prove something fundamental. It needed to prove that hope was just a pretty word for inevitable disappointment, that kindness was naivety waiting to be punished, that the world crushed soft things, and the only way to survive was to become harder than the world itself. No amount of prayers or innocent kindness would change that truth. Christmas Eve dawned cold and gray over Manhattan. Sterling woke at 4:30 a.m. as always. But this time sleep hadn't really come. He'd lain in the dark for hours, listening to the city's distant hum, feeling the weight of the day ahead. He dressed methodically. $3,000 suit, silk tie, polished Italian shoes, as if arming himself for battle. Maybe he was. A battle against his own doubts, his own memories, his own inexplicable desire to call the whole thing off. At 5:45 a.m., he stood in front of St. Catherine's Orphanage. The snow had stopped during the night, leaving the city covered in pristine white that would turn to gray slush by afternoon. Christmas lights still twinkled in the orphanage windows, and he could see shadows moving inside. Children and nuns, preparing for the inevitable. 2 marshals were waiting, along with 4 police officers. A small group of protesters had already gathered despite the early hour, holding signs and candles. "Let the children have Christmas. Don't you have a heart, Sterling?" Jesus was born poor too. One woman, a mother with her own child probably, looked directly at him, not with anger, but with profound sadness, as if she could see right through him to the wounded boy inside. Sterling ignored them all and climbed the steps. Before he could knock, the door opened. Sister Margaret stood there, dressed in her habit, eyes red from crying but back straight. Whatever storm had raged inside her last night, she'd found some kind of peace, or at least resignation. "Mr. Sterling, you're early. The eviction is scheduled for 6 hours. It's 5:50, I'm on time." "Yes, you always are." She stepped aside. "The children are in the living room. Allow me at least to give them a moment to say goodbye to their home." Sterling noticed her hands were completely steady now. The trembling from 2 days ago was gone, replaced by a kind of quiet strength. "Where are they going?" "We have temporary accommodations in 3 different shelters across the city. The children will be separated at least until we can regroup." Her voice was calm, factual. "Lily and 3 of the younger girls are going to the Bronx, the older boys to Queens, the middle children to a facility in Brooklyn. I hope it's temporary, but..." She met his eyes. "I honestly don't know." "I see. Do you?" She stared at him directly, without accusation, without anger, just profound sadness. "You got what you wanted, Mr. Sterling. I hope it was worth what it cost your soul." She turned and walked upstairs without waiting for a response. Sterling should have felt victorious. He'd proven his point. The world was cruel. Sentimentality didn't change economic realities, and he'd successfully executed a difficult business decision. But standing in that entrance hall, smelling those cookies, seeing those handmade decorations, hearing the quiet sobs from upstairs, all he felt was a strange, heavy emptiness. He walked outside and dismissed the marshals. Give them until noon, then execute the eviction. Sir, you specifically said, I know what I said. Noon. His voice was harsh. Just give them a few more hours. He didn't wait for questions. He turned and walked away, through the snow, with no destination in mind. For the next several hours, Sterling wandered Manhattan like a ghost. He found himself in parts of the city he never visited, watching as it woke up to Christmas Eve. Families heading to breakfast at diners. Children pressing noses against store windows, pointing at toys. Couples walking hand in hand, shopping bags bumping. Church bells ringing. Salvation Army volunteers on corners. Everywhere there was life and light and connection. And Jonathan Sterling walked through it all, completely alone. He ended up in Bryant Park, sitting on a snow-covered bench, staring at nothing. When was the last time he'd actually stopped? When was the last time he wasn't running toward the next deal, the next building, the next proof that he'd won? When was the last time he felt human? Jesus taught me to love even people who do bad things. Lily's voice echoed in his mind. And suddenly, without warning, the walls he'd spent 50 years building began to crack. He thought about his mother, the woman who left him on that cold doorstep in December. He'd built an entire life of anger around her. She was the villain, the abandoner, the one who taught him that love was a lie. But for the first time sitting on that bench, he wondered, what if she had no choice? What if she was desperate, alone, terrified? What if she was just a kid herself, 17 or 18 with no resources and no options? What if leaving him was the hardest thing she'd ever done? And it broke her as much as it broke him. He'd never know. She died when he was 15. He found out through state records years later. Overdose, no funeral, no family, no one to mourn her. Alone. Just like he was now. No, he whispered to the cold air. I'm not like her. I'm strong. I survived. But is surviving the same as living? Is building an empire the same as building a life? Hours passed in a blur. Sterling vaguely realized he was freezing, his expensive suit offering little protection against the December cold. But he couldn't force himself to move. Around 3 p.m., his cell phone rang, jarring him back to reality. His lawyer. Mr. Sterling? The eviction was executed at noon as you instructed. The children have been transferred. The property is now empty and secured. The demolition crew can start tomorrow morning as planned. Understood. His voice sounded distant, mechanical, like it belonged to someone else. Sir, are you all right? I'm fine. Thank you for the update. But he wasn't fine. As he hung up, he realized that for the first time in his adult life, he'd just lied about being fine and actually cared that it was a lie. He finally stood and started walking toward home. His legs were numb, his face stinging from the cold. But on the way, he passed a small church, one of those old stone buildings that had somehow survived Manhattan's endless transformation. The doors were open, golden light pouring into the street like an invitation. A choir was singing inside. Silent Night. Sterling stopped dead. That song. He hadn't heard it, really heard it, since he was 7 years old. Since the globe. Since hope died. Almost against his will, his feet carried him toward the entrance. He paused at the threshold, part of him screaming to run, to get back to his safe, controlled, empty apartment. But a bigger part, a part that had been silent for decades, whispered, just for a minute, just to hear. The church was full of families, candles everywhere, their flames reflecting off stained glass windows. The air scented with pine and wax and something else, something he'd forgotten the name for. Community, belonging. He slipped into the back pew, hidden in shadows, and listened. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. The music washed over him. And then, without warning, tears began streaming down his face. He couldn't remember the last time he'd cried. His entire adult life had been built on control, on strength, on never showing weakness. But here, in the darkness, surrounded by strangers celebrating something he'd convinced himself was a lie, the tears came, and wouldn't stop. Round yon virgin, mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild. His shoulders shook. He covered his face with his hands, but it didn't help. 50 years of grief and loneliness and rage poured out, and he was powerless to stop it. Please, he whispered into his hands, not even sure who he was talking to. He hadn't prayed in half a century, wasn't sure he believed in anyone listening, but the words came anyway, desperate, broken. Please, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be alone anymore. No voice answered from the heavens. No angel appeared with a message. God didn't descend from the clouds with solutions and redemption. But something shifted. Something so small, so quiet. He almost missed it. A memory. Sharp and clear and unbearably vivid. The volunteer who gave him the snow globe. The kindness in her eyes. I saw your name on the list and thought you'd like it. For one moment, one brief, shining moment, someone had seen Johnny. Not just another orphan. Not just a problem to be managed. But a child with a name. With wishes. With a heart that could be touched by a simple gift. Someone had cared. And today, 50 years later, a 7-year-old girl facing homelessness because of his cruelty had looked at him and seen, not a monster, not money, not power. She'd seen loneliness, pain, a wounded soul, and she decided he was worth praying for. He's very scared and very hurt. Sterling stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the pew. Several people turned to look at him. This man in an expensive suit, face wet with tears, looking like he'd seen a ghost. He didn't care. He pushed through the door and out into the cold, gulping air. Then he started running. Ran through the snow, his Italian leather shoes slipping on ice, his suit jacket flying open, his breath coming in gasps that clouded the air. Ran the 20 blocks to his apartment building as if he were fleeing from something terrible or maybe, finally, running towards something worth having. He burst through his apartment door, pulling off his coat, searching for what? He wasn't even sure. But then he saw it on the hall table, where his housekeeper must have placed it when she found it outside his door. A small package wrapped in faded red tissue paper, tied with string. Sterling stopped, frozen. No, it couldn't be. With trembling hands, he picked it up. There was a letter, a child's handwriting, careful and deliberate. Dear Mr. Sterling. He read every word, once, twice, 3 times. Each time, the words hit harder. I'll be your friend, even if you take our house away. With held breath and shaking fingers, he unwrapped the package. A snow globe fell into his palm. Time stopped. It was old. The water inside was yellowed, cloudy with age. One side had a hairline crack running through it like a scar. But inside was a family. Mother, father, child, gathered around a Christmas tree. Exactly like the one he'd had. Exactly like the one that had been his only treasure before the world taught him that treasures get taken away. He shook it. His hands were trembling so badly he almost dropped it. The fake snow swirled, and the music began. Crooked, broken, the mechanism clearly damaged, playing in discordant, uneven notes, but unmistakable. Silent night. Jonathan Sterling fell to his knees in the middle of his $3 million apartment and cried like he hadn't cried since he was 7 years old. Great, heaving sobs that tore from his chest, 50 years of grief and loneliness and carefully controlled rage pouring out all at once. He cried for the child he'd been, the boy who'd believed in kindness, until kindness was stolen from him. He cried for the mother he'd never known, no longer a villain but maybe just another lost soul doing her best in an impossible situation. He cried for 50 years of loneliness he'd chosen, walls he'd built, love he'd rejected because letting it in hurt too much. And he cried because a 7-year-old girl, whom he'd hurt in the worst way possible, had looked at him and seen not his cruelty, not his power, not his money. She'd seen his pain, and she'd given him her most precious possession, not to fix him, not to buy forgiveness, but simply because she saw that he was alone, and she thought he needed a friend. I'll be your friend, even if you take our house away. He stayed on that floor for what felt like hours. The broken globe rested in his palms, and with each passing minute, a war raged inside him. One voice, the voice that had kept him safe for 50 years, screamed warnings. This is manipulation. A child's trick. You'll open yourself up and get destroyed again. This is how it always ends. Pain. Abandonment. Loss. But another voice, quieter, persistent. undeniable. What if it's not? What if this once, just this once, love is real? What if you've been wrong about everything? He stood, pacing his apartment like a caged animal. His phone sat on the counter. One call could fix this. Or it could expose him to the worst pain imaginable. Hope followed by crushing disappointment, exactly like when he was 7. "I can't," he said aloud to the empty room. "I can't do this. It's too much, too risky." But even as he spoke, he was reaching for the phone. Because somewhere in the last hour, amid the tears and the broken music and that child's simple declaration of love, something fundamental had shifted in his soul. He'd spent 5 decades proving he didn't need anyone. 50 years of being right, being strong, being untouchable. And he was so tired of being right. His hand shook as he dialed the lawyer. Hung up before it rang. Dialed again. Hung up. His heart was pounding like he was about to jump off a cliff with no guarantee of ground below. Third time he let it ring. "Sir?" came the sleepy, confused voice. Sterling's throat was tight. Words wouldn't come. He tried twice. Failed both times. "Sir? Are you all right?" "No." The word came out as a broken whisper. "No, I'm not all right. And I haven't been for a very long time. But I want to be. God help me. I want to try." Silence on the other end. Then carefully, "What do you need?" I need to fix what I broke. I need the addresses of all the children, right now, tonight." "Sir, it's Christmas Eve. It's almost 7 p.m. I'm with my family." "I know." Sterling's voice cracked. "I know, and I'm sorry, but please, I need to make this right. I need to see them, especially Lily. Please tell me where she is." A pause. "Give me 10 minutes. I'll send everything to your phone." "Thank you." Next call. His driver. "I need you to meet me now and bring the SUV, the big one, and..." He looked around his apartment at all the expensive emptiness. "Stop at the biggest toy store that's still open. I don't care what it costs. Fill the car." "Sir, it's Christmas Eve. Most stores are." "Find one that's open, please." One more call. The hardest one. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. Sister Margaret's number. He'd kept it in his files, though he wasn't sure why. She answered on the third ring. "Hello?" Her voice was exhausted, drained. "Sister Margaret, it's Jonathan Sterling." Silence, cold and hard as ice. "I know you have no reason to listen to me. I know that I was monstrous, unforgivable." His voice broke. "But I need to know. Lily, where is she? I need to see her." "Why?" Her voice was steel. "So you can finish breaking her heart? She gave you everything she had, Mr. Sterling. The one precious thing in her entire world. And you..." "I know." Tears were streaming down his face again. "I know what I did, and I can't take it back. But she gave me a gift. This snow globe. And it's..." He couldn't find the words. "It's the same as one I had when I was 7. Before it was taken from me. Before I learned to hate Christmas and hope and everything. And I need to thank her. I need to ask her to forgive me, please." The silence stretched, then softer, almost gentle. "She's at a shelter in the Bronx, 42 East 180th Street. But Mr. Sterling, if you hurt that child again, if this is some kind of publicity stunt or..." "It's not. I swear on everything that's sacred, everything I destroyed. I won't hurt her. I need to try to fix this. Even if it's too late. Even if she hates me. I need to try." "She doesn't hate you," Sister Margaret said quietly. "That's what you don't understand. She prayed for you this morning. Even after losing her home, losing everything, she prayed for you. That's the kind of child she is." The words hit Sterling like a physical blow. "I don't deserve that." "No," Sister Margaret agreed. "You don't. But grace isn't about deserving. It's about receiving what we don't deserve and becoming worthy of it. Don't make her sacrifice meaningless." The trip to the Bronx should have taken 25 minutes. Sterling made it in 15, the SUV weaving through Christmas Eve traffic with reckless urgency. The back was loaded with hastily purchased gifts: dolls, games, art supplies, books, warm clothes, a bicycle. Things he'd grabbed frantically from a closing department store, barely looking, just filling bags. But he knew none of it mattered. No amount of presents could fix what he'd done. The shelter was a gray, depressing building with peeling paint and windows covered in security bars. Even the Christmas wreath on the door looked sad, wilted. Security guards stopped him at the entrance. "Sir, visiting hours are over, and on Christmas Eve we don't allow—" Sterling interrupted, not with anger, but with desperate pleading. "Please, I need to see one of the children. Lily. Her full name is—" He realized with shame he didn't know her last name. "She's 7. Brown curly hair. She just arrived today. Please. It's an emergency. Sir, unless you're family, we can't—" "I'm the person who put her here." The words exploded out of him. "I'm the monster who took her home on Christmas Eve. I'm the reason she's in this place instead of somewhere safe and warm with people who love her. And I need to tell her I'm sorry. I need to try to make it right. Please." The guards exchanged looks. One of them, a younger man with kind eyes, said quietly, "5 minutes. But any trouble, any stress to that kid, and you're out. She's been through enough." Thank you so much." Sterling climbed the stairs to the second floor, his legs shaking. A tired staff member, a woman in her 40s who looked like she'd been working double shifts, led him to a common room where several children sat silently, staring at a television playing A Christmas Story. But Lily wasn't among them. "She's in her room," the staff member said with a hint of sadness. "Hasn't wanted to come out since she arrived. Hasn't eaten. Just keeps hugging that teddy bear and crying. We tried everything, but—" She shrugged helplessly. "Wait here. I'll see if she'll come out." Sterling waited, clutching the snow globe like a lifeline. Every second felt like an eternity. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it. What if she refused to see him? What if— Then she appeared. Lily looked even smaller than he remembered, dwarfed by the hallway. Her eyes were swollen and red from crying. She was wearing the same clothes from that morning, now wrinkled and stained. Her hair had come loose from the pigtails. She was clutching her teddy bear like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to the world. When she saw him, she stopped, just stood there staring. Sterling fell to his knees to be at her level. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Lily," his voice broke on her name. I got your gift." She stayed quiet, just looking at him with those huge green eyes that had seen too much sadness for 7 years. "It was the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me." Tears were streaming down his face, and he made no attempt to hide them. "And I don't deserve it. I don't deserve your kindness, your prayers, any of it. Because I was cruel to you. I took your home. I took your family. I hurt you in the worst way possible. And God, Lily, I'm so sorry." His voice broke completely. He couldn't go on for a moment. When he finally could speak, the words came out in a rush. "You gave me your most precious treasure, and I don't have anything worth that much to give back to you. But I have a question." He held out the snow globe, offering it back to her with trembling hands. "Could you teach me how to be the kind of person who gives gifts like this? How to love people who do bad things? How to be more like you?" Lily looked at the globe, then at him. Her small face was serious, considering. Then she did something that broke him completely, shattered every last wall around his heart. She pushed the globe back into his hands and wrapped her small arms around his neck in a tight hug. "You keep it," she whispered in his ear, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "Because you need it more than I do. And I already have a family. Sister Margaret and the other kids. We're a family. But you don't have anybody. Not yet." Sterling held her, this tiny human being who had more courage and love in her pinky finger than he'd had in his entire life. He held her and made a promise, not out loud, but in the silence of his heart, to whatever God might be listening. "I'm going to fix this. I don't know how, but I will. I'll make this right. I swear it." When he finally pulled back, he wiped his eyes and tried to smile. "Lily, I have something important to do tonight, but could you meet me tomorrow? Christmas morning at St. Catherine's?" Confusion crossed her small face. "But St. Catherine's isn't ours anymore. You took it away." I know I did. But just trust me. Please? Will you come? You and Sister Margaret and all the other children?" She tilted her head, studying him with that unsettling wisdom children sometimes have. "Are you going to do something good?" "I'm going to try." I'm going to try to do what you taught me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Okay, I trust you. Because Sister Margaret says Jesus is working on your heart. And I think she's right. Sterling left the shelter feeling lighter than he had in 50 years. He climbed into the SUV and made a series of calls. First call, his lawyer, who by now was probably regretting ever answering his phone on Christmas Eve. I need you to cancel the demolition, immediately, tonight, right now. And prepare documents to transfer complete ownership of the property at 42 West 42nd Street to St. Catherine's Orphanage organization. Full deed, no strings, no conditions. It's theirs. Sir, it's Christmas Eve. It's almost 8 p.m. The banks are closed. Then work through the night if you have to. I want the documents ready by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, Christmas morning. And call the bank president at home. I don't care if he's carving turkey. I want a certified check for $5 million made out to St. Catherine's for debt clearance, building repairs, and permanent endowment fund. Can you do that? A long pause. $5 million? You heard me. And if you need authorization to access my accounts after hours, you have it. Whatever it takes, this happens. Second call, Sister Margaret. Sister, it's Sterling again. I need you to gather all the children tomorrow morning, every single one. Bring them back to St. Catherine's, 10 a.m. Can you do that? Mr. Sterling, what's going on? What are you planning? Something I should have done 50 years ago. His voice was steady now, filled with purpose. I'm going to believe that miracles are real, that grace exists, that broken things can be made whole. Will you help me? Another pause. Then, with wonder in her voice, yes, yes, we'll be there. Third call, Carol, his secretary. Carol, I'm so sorry to call you on Christmas Eve. I know you're with your family, but I need your help. One last time, or maybe the first time for something that actually matters. Mr. Sterling? Her voice was confused, concerned. Are you all right? No, but I'm going to be. Carol, I need you to help me transform St. Catherine's tonight, back into a home, the most beautiful Christmas home those children have ever seen. Can you do that? Transform it, tonight? Sir, it's Christmas Eve. Everything's closed. The decorating companies, the stores. I know, but I have money. A lot of it. And for the first time in my life, I want to use it for something that matters. There has to be someone who will work tonight for the right price. A tree. The biggest, most beautiful tree you can find. Lights. Decorations. Make it look like love. Can you help me? He heard her voice break. Mr. Sterling, after all these years working for you, I thought you didn't have a heart. I'm so glad I was wrong. Me too, Carol. Me too. Sterling spent the night in constant motion. He and Carol, along with a hastily assembled crew of decorators who agreed to work for triple overtime, transformed St. Catherine's. They hauled in a 10-foot Christmas tree that barely fit through the door, strung thousands of lights, hung garlands on every banister, set up tables in the dining room and covered them with red and green tablecloths. But it was the presents that took the most time. Sterling sat in the middle of the living room at 2 a.m., personally wrapping gifts. Not just toys, though there were plenty of those, but practical things. New winter coats in every size, school supplies, laptops for the older children with educational software pre-installed, art supplies for the creative ones, books, warm blankets, everything he could think of that they might need. And for Lily, he had something special. He'd sent his driver on a desperate hunt across the city until they found it. A new snow globe. Perfect. Crystal clear water. A family inside, mother, father, and child, around a Christmas tree. And when you shook it, Silent Night played in clear, perfect notes. But Sterling kept the broken one. That one he'd carry with him forever. A reminder of what mattered, of what he'd almost lost, of the gift that had saved his life. At 5 a.m., as dawn began to break over Manhattan, Sterling stood in the middle of St. Catherine's entrance hall and looked at what they'd created. It was beautiful. It was warm. It was everything a home should be. Carol stood beside him, exhausted but smiling. It's perfect. It is, Sterling agreed quietly. Then, after a pause, Carol, I need to apologize to you too. 8 years you've worked for me. 8 years you've watched me be cruel and cold. You've wiped tears I pretended not to see. You've stayed loyal when I gave you no reason to. I'm sorry. For all of it." She touched his arm gently. "You're fixing it now. That's what matters." At 9:45 a.m. on Christmas morning, Sterling stood nervously in the entrance hall. He'd changed out of his expensive suit into jeans and a simple sweater. For the first time in decades, he looked like a regular person, a human being instead of a corporate machine. At 9:50, he heard voices outside, children's voices. The door opened and Sister Margaret entered first, her eyes widening as she took in the transformation. Then came the children, arriving in small groups from the various shelters. They entered hesitantly, confused, almost frightened. What was happening? Why were they back here? Then they saw the tree, the lights, the presents piled underneath, the decorations, the warmth. Several children gasped. One started crying. Sister Margaret covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming down her face. Lily was the last to enter. She stood in the doorway, still clutching her teddy bear, looking around with wide eyes. Sterling stepped forward. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "Children," he began, and every small face turned to look at him. "I owe you the greatest apology a man can give. I took your home. I hurt you. I was cruel and cold and everything a grown-up should never be. And no amount of presents or promises can erase what I did." He paused, taking a deep breath. "But I want to try to make it right. Because one of you," he looked at Lily, "taught me something I'd forgotten. She taught me that love is stronger than hate, that grace is real, that broken things can be healed." He pulled out an envelope and walked over to Sister Margaret, placing it in her trembling hands. "This is the deed to the building. It belongs to you now. Completely. Forever. No strings. No conditions. This is your home." Sister Margaret opened the envelope with shaking fingers. Her eyes widened as she read the legal documents. "And there's more." Sterling handed her a second envelope. "A check for $5 million. For debt clearance, building repairs, and a permanent endowment fund. So you never have to worry about losing your home again. So you can hire more staff, provide better care, give these children everything they deserve." Sister Margaret couldn't speak. She just stood there holding the documents, tears pouring down her face. But it was Lily who broke the stunned silence. She walked up to Sterling, looked up at him seriously, and asked, "Does this mean we can stay?" "Yes. This means you can stay. Forever. And you won't take it away again?" "Never. I promise. This is your home." Then Lily did something that made every adult in the room tear up. She took his hand, her tiny fingers wrapping around his much larger ones, and said simply, "Do you want to have Christmas breakfast with us?" Sterling looked at that small hand in his, looked around at the children, at Sister Margaret, at this place he'd tried to destroy, and that had instead saved him. This place that felt more like home than anywhere he'd ever lived. "I would love that more than anything in the world." Christmas breakfast at St. Catherine's was chaos in the best possible way. There were burnt pancakes that Sterling gamely ate, claiming they were delicious. There was spilled orange juice that he helped clean up. There were children laughing, arguing over presents, showing him their new toys with excited chatter. And in the middle of it all, Lily sat next to him, swinging her legs, explaining with absolute seriousness how prayer works. "See, you don't have to use fancy words," she said, syrup on her chin. "You just have to talk to Jesus like he's your friend. Because he is. And he listens even when you're mad at him. Is that what you did? When you prayed for me?" "Yep. I told Jesus you were really hurting and that you needed help. And that I loved you even though you were being mean. And he said..." She paused, her face scrunching up in concentration. "Well, he didn't say words, but I felt like he said he was already working on it." Sterling felt tears prick his eyes for what felt like the 100th time in 24 hours. "You know what, Lily? I think he was. I think he was working through you." She beamed at that, then went back to her pancakes. In the weeks and months that followed, something extraordinary happened. Sterling didn't return to his old life. He still ran his company, still attended meetings, still made deals. But everything was different now. There was balance, there was purpose, there was connection. He started visiting St. Catherine's every week, First just Sundays, then Wednesdays too, then whenever he could. He played board games with the children, helped with homework, listened to their dreams and fears. Slowly, week by week, the remaining walls around his heart continued to crumble. In March, he approached Sister Margaret after one of his visits. "Sister, I've been thinking about Lily, about adoption. How does that work?" Sister Margaret's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Oh, Jonathan, she talks about you constantly. She'd be thrilled." The adoption process started in June. There was paperwork, home visits, interviews. Sterling went through it all with a patience and humility that shocked everyone who knew him. In September, Lily officially moved in with him, but not to his old apartment. He'd sold that sterile penthouse within weeks of Christmas. Instead, he bought a real house in Brooklyn, 3 stories of warm brick with a backyard, a porch swing, and rooms that Lily immediately began filling with her drawings and her laughter. Every night they had a ritual. After dinner, after homework, after baths and bedtime stories, they would sit together on her bed. Sterling would take out the broken snow globe, her gift, her sacrifice, and they would shake it together. The crooked notes of Silent Night would fill the room and they would talk about their day. "Dad," Lily said one night. She'd started calling him that naturally around month 3, and every single time she said it, his heart almost burst. "What really made you change your mind?" "That Christmas Eve," Sterling thought carefully. He never lied to her. She deserved truth. "You gave me something no one had ever given me before." "The snow globe?" "No, well, yes, but more than that." He struggled to find the words. "You gave me hope. You showed me I wasn't alone. That even when I was terrible, truly terrible, you still saw me as someone worth loving, worth saving. That's because Jesus loves everybody like that," she said with the simple confidence of a child. "Even the bad guys, even the people who do mean things. He loves them and wants them to get better. So I try to love people that way too." Sterling pulled her into a hug. "You did more than try, sweetheart. You succeeded. You saved me." "Nuh-uh," she said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "Jesus saved you. I just delivered the package." 2 years after that transformative Christmas Eve, Sterling stood at St. Catherine's during the annual Christmas party. He watched as Lily and the other children performed a nativity play. Slightly chaotic, completely sincere, absolutely beautiful. And he realized something profound. This building, which he'd once wanted to destroy out of bitterness and pain, had become the center of his life, not just for him, but for dozens of people. The $5 million had transformed everything. There were now therapists on staff to help children process trauma, music classes, a tutoring program, an art studio, a small gymnasium, and other businesses, inspired by Sterling's transformation, had started donating too. The ripple effect of one child's sacrificial love had spread further than anyone could have imagined. After the play, Sterling stood and addressed the room, not because he was asked to, but because he needed to say it. 2 years ago, he began, his voice carrying across the crowded room. "I stood in this building as a different man, a man who believed that power meant never needing anyone, that strength meant never caring. That Christmas was just a beautiful lie we told ourselves to forget how cruel the world really is." He looked at Lily, who sat in the front row, beaming at him. "But a little girl with a broken snow globe and an unbroken heart showed me the truth. Christmas isn't about presents under trees or lights in windows, though those things are beautiful. It's about seeing someone at their absolute worst and choosing to love them anyway. It's about believing in redemption when all evidence says it's impossible. It's about having faith that no night is so dark that light can't break through." His voice thickened with emotion. "Lily gave me a gift that Christmas Eve. Not the snow globe itself, though I treasure it as my most precious possession. The real gift was that she saw me. Not my money, not my power, not even my cruelty. She saw my loneliness, my pain, the frightened child I'd been trying to hide for 50 years. And she decided I was worth loving anyway." He looked around the room, at children who had found safety here, at staff members who had found purpose, at Sister Margaret, who had never stopped believing. That's the message of Christmas. Not that we're all perfect, but that we're all seen, all loved, all worthy of grace. No matter how far we've fallen, or how much we've hurt others, the door is always open. The light is always shining. We just need the courage to step through. There was a moment of profound silence. Then applause erupted. Children ran up to hug him. Sterling embraced them all, this man who had once believed love was weakness, now understanding that love was the strongest force in the universe. As the party continued around him, Lily tugged on his hand. "I'm proud of you, Dad." He knelt down to her level. "I'm proud of you too, sweetheart. You're the bravest person I know. Can I tell you a secret?" she whispered. "Always. That night when I wrapped the snow globe, I was really scared. I almost didn't give it to you, I almost kept it." "Why didn't you?" She thought about it seriously. "Because I remembered what Sister Margaret always says. Scared is okay, but we do brave things anyway. And I thought, maybe Jesus was asking me to be brave so you could be brave too." Sterling pulled her into his arms. This child who had taught a grown man how to live, how to love, how to believe in miracles again. "You were right," he whispered. "You were so right. We are all broken snow globes with crooked melodies, cracked by life, yellowed by time, playing songs that don't quite sound right anymore. The water's cloudy, the mechanism damaged, the glass fractured. We carry our wounds like badges, our pain like armor, convinced that if we can just build the walls high enough, we'll never hurt again." Jonathan Sterling built an empire from his fractures, convinced that sealing the cracks made him whole. But wholeness never came from isolation. It came when a 7-year-old girl saw his broken pieces and offered hers in return, not to fix him, but to say, "I see you. You're not alone. Your broken doesn't scare me." That's grace. Not a cosmic reset button that erases our past. Not a magical solution that makes pain disappear. Grace is a hand extended in the darkness saying, "Let's be broken together and see what light gets in through the cracks." The question isn't whether we're damaged. We all are. Life breaks everyone in different ways. The question is whether we'll keep building walls or start building bridges. Whether we'll hoard our pain like treasure or offer it up like Lily did, trembling, terrified, trusting that love is stronger than fear. Christmas reminds us that the most sacred night in history began in a stable. God chose broken things. Manger, not palace. Shepherds, not kings. A teenage mother, not a queen. A feeding trough instead of a cradle. Your cracks aren't disqualifications. They're invitations. Invitations for light to enter, for grace to work, for transformation to begin. What Sterling learned, what Lily taught him, is that we don't heal by becoming unbreakable. We heal by admitting we're broken and letting others love us anyway. We heal by giving from our poverty instead of our abundance. We heal by being seen in our worst moments and choosing to believe we're still worthy of love. That's the real miracle of Christmas. Not that a baby was born, not even that God became human. The miracle is that broken things can become beautiful, that the lost can be found, that the hardest heart can soften, that it's never too late to come home. If this story reminded you that no night is too dark for dawn, leave your amen below. Share it with someone who needs to remember they're seen, loved, and worthy, cracks and all. Subscribe for more stories about the messy, beautiful work of becoming whole.